That was cool. That was super cool.
I've been getting to the money. Everybody mad. Think I'm getting too much money. Everybody mad.
Hi everybody, my name is Jessica Holyfield. I'm a professional dancer, professional dance choreographer, and dance educator based out of the southeast of the United States. And we're going to be taking a look at XG's move number 1. So I'm actually officially starting my XG marathon on Patreon. And as XG releases comebacks, I will be slowly releasing these into the world of YouTube, but they will be hanging out on Patreon until those things happen. So if you are like, Jess, I want to be a part of this as you film it, you're not. Go hang out on Patreon and you will be bound to have some very exciting things to take a look at. Comment to your heart's content. Go crazy. I will be there to go crazy with you. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at our very first video.
Yeah. They ain't gonna like it. They ain't gonna like it.
I know they filmed this at YGX because of the mural. Hey. Oh, I like that. That was a fun moment. Yeah. Great musicality here.
I've been getting to the money.
Everybody mad. That was cool. That was cool. It was super cool. So, well, here's what I know. I know in this beginning it does resonate very well with wolves, or releasing the hounds is what it comes across as. I do know with XG, their whole aesthetic that they go for is a wolf pack, right? Like alpha, and a lot of alphas. I know that's the fandom's name. You guys have done a really good job of helping me be more aware of what kind of group this is. This is Japanese members based in, it's a Japanese girl group based in Korea who is trained by a Japanese Korean. That's what I've gleaned from what you guys have said. So they do, and a lot of K-pop groups may not like them. And that's what I've heard too. But anyway, I'm just looking at the choreo here, and I don't really know the names of any of them either, and I am totally okay with that because we're looking at the content, not just who they are as people. We're looking at, you know, do I get to see symptoms of what makes XG XG? And I feel like I do a little bit. And I know this is considered more of a pre-debut kind of footage that we're taking a look at, so we're not, and it's kind of fun that they have masks, and I'm not gonna put it up to, because I think this is like 2020, it's like 2022 maybe, I think is whenever they started running these move concepts. So it's been a couple years since a lot of mask mandates have been really enforced, so I think part of this was intentional. But I really like it. I love this setup here. It looks like she has, there's a really great connection here. Her arm up, really showcasing levels, which is really nice to see, you know, dropping it down. Like they're doing a great job with a lot of their hand placement, which I think is a really great choice. Now, as they get this set up, she said, release the hounds, you know? So mostly, I know they're considered like a wolf, like more wolf in theme. So that's probably what that is signifying, more than like bloodhounds or like release the kraken, you know? Which I really love that energy though. I think it's really fun. Each of them gets their own little moment there. Yeah, the energy, bah, bah, as they pop off on the outside. It's a really great choice to pop it off on the outside because it maintains your levels, or your more so your dynamics, and you want your range of your space to always be changing because it shows us that you really care about the visual representation, not just the content that you bring. So I love that that reverb that we saw before they drop back down. That was nice too, going boom, boom, explosion, where it turned into an add-on where you had just your front three hit that first and everybody else joined on that second one. That was really cool to see. That was cool too. As they use the more of a polyrhythmic collaboration between the upper body with the feet and the footwork as they drop down. That was a really nice transition. There's something I'm noticing, however, with this. This is just more so a recommendation for these girls in particular. Whenever you do a more masculine style and you are a more petite in frame, especially when you have thinner arms, I can say, like, when I do crump or I study a style that's much more masculine, for me, my arms are pretty thin. So they're really nice in, let's say, ballet. Like, the form of them are really nice. And I would say some of them have thinner arms. Recommendation here is really utilize the back. And I feel like in some of these choreographic context, we see the back being used a lot more. But some of these moves, they are not using the back, and it doesn't come across as powerful because they do not have as much they do not have as much muscle on their arms. And that's totally fine, but sometimes whenever we're diving into a style, I think it's great that they're doing a great job of honing in on the power of the style, but if they wanted to appear more natural, not like we're girls trying to pop off, if you want it to be like, this is what we do, little things like using the back versus the arms goes a long way. Whacking, it works in that way. If you want more power, you got to use your back. There's no way to escape it. And in these movements, sometimes you can get away with it, but it's a whenever you're sleeveless, you can't. So I think that's my overall note I'm noticing here. That little boom, boom, that was a really nice energy. They used the head to come back up. So it was fun seeing them go down, da-da-da-da. So you could really see that they're hitting all the musicality levels and aesthetics of this, which is really nice. That right there is an example. So notice how she hits it, and there's a difference between, okay, my shoulders are moving and I'm using my back. Using your back is going to have this extra control and power that comes from your triceps. That's something that we didn't see. It was more of a swing that was happening. And there was an accent that hits at the top end of the elbow, but there wasn't as much power behind that accent, hence why it came across the way that it did. That is my only note in this. And that speaks volumes too, at just how well they're holding it down. They're very clean. And this is something that, because I'm actually reacting to an AT's marathon at the same time as XG, this is a great example of what I gave a note to AT's pre-debut performance version that I'm saying here. This is an example of, here's your color scheme, but everybody gets to showcase their own individuality. Does it sacrifice on cleanliness? Potentially. But if you notice, they really tried to make sure that the fabrics were complementary to each other, because you have some leather at the bottom, but some have a more baggy or jogger style. Some of them chose to go that more sleek bodysuit aesthetic to match the type of mask they're wearing. Some took a more long sleeve crop, and some took a more leather motorcycle-esque aesthetic and with the tailoring down of the jean. So you could tell they are a group, but they each have their own color, and not color like obviously they're all wearing black, but like their own individuality even within the fashion. And that helps me be able to unlock or see what kind of individuality they bring to the table as people, but also know if they're wearing masks, so you already don't have a facial recognition that you can log in to be like, okay, this person, oh, I remember her hair was this, In that way, it's a bit trickier to kind of hone in on who we're looking at here. But it's still really fun, though. The energy, that was great. Da-da, everybody. Like, that was a really, really great pull of energy there. Popping it down. Love that pull. Everybody having their own moment, having your feature near the front, which is really fun. I love how she goes da-da-da-da-da-da, boom, pops it off. Really great way to showcase and focal point your features that you want without going overboard in that, and you can still see the fullness of the dancing that's happening behind you. Now, can I talk about the content happening behind? Not as much, obviously, because it's not all in frame, but I can definitely tell it's framing well, which means the levels are probably in a pretty good place and the spacing is probably in a good place as well. Now, looking here, really great choice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We got a group of 7. Chef's kiss. Anytime that you do with a music group in general, it is always, I feel like it's definitely better to go with an odd number, because when you deal with solos within the group, it's easier to showcase them and maintain symmetry. So this is a great example of that. And in crews too. For me as a choreographer, I prefer to work with a solo, a trio, group of 5, a group of 7, not because I hate children and I'm like, you make an even number, go away. No, it just makes it, but with dance, like when you do dance in comparison to like a K-pop group or a group that sings, those are trickier because you have somebody singing and a lot of times they're an isolated sound. Of course, people can harmonize, but mostly they're like, I'm the feature because I'm the one singing this part of the track. But in dance, we can get away with having, you know, multiple people up to be featured all the time because they're not singing. Unless you're going, it's a whole musicality thing, and we can talk about that later. But I'm saying for here, whenever you're dealing with, obviously I know they're going to be a group. Are they representative of K-pop? I don't know, because they're like this hybrid project group, and I think they are freaking great so far. It's super cool. I feel like it's really nice to see a lot of these levels are easier to see a feature. I think by them making the choice of going with 7 versus dropping it down or dropping it up to 6 or 8. That was a really great add-on, noticing we started with the 3 and then they did single build out where they went from, normally you would see people do one person and then they would do the ones and then they would actually combine them and they would join at the same time, but it was a little different. Instead, they did my group of 3 and then a single and then a single. So you notice that it read a little bit differently, where it had more fullness in the beginning of the phrase and then it kind of dropped down near the tail end, but it matched very well on a musicality front because it felt like their build out was matching the music without it overpowering or feeling subpar to how the music's representing itself. So that was a really, really great choice from them. And I love that, like, very stagnant pelvic thrust. That was actually kind of fun. It was cool. And then having her lift her arm up helped maintain us knowing that she was our feature for that moment. While everybody had more extroverted movement presented, she was able to maintain our psychological attention, which helped them be able to properly frame her within the content that they were given. Now, with the transition was really nice having this moment right here, having one of them. Notice everybody's got the 2 hands except for my center, and notice that she has one hand moving. Everybody else has got 2 hands moving. Really helps showcase who your feature is very subtly. I also see that we have moons on this mask. It could mean, you know, like with wolves, you associate they howl at the moon, you know, so I'm really picking up on Easter eggs now because of what I've already seen from XG. I've already seen 2 things from XG so far, which is cool. It was Puppet Show and their performance film, which was dope, by the way. So I really feel like I'm actually more in the know, I feel, with this particular group when it comes to their aesthetic, watching their pre-debut into what I'm going to get into in comparison to some of the other groups that I've already done this with, like let's say actively with ATs or with 17 that I've recently concluded. So it's very cool to see this. I love that energy. She goes da 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 da. Notice that you could tell from her eyes that she's performing underneath her mask. And that does help us know that they are they're committing regardless if we see their full face, if we don't see their face at all. That's the risk you run with masks, is you have to rely upon your body more so to showcase performance, more so than your face. But they're doing a fabulous job. Even though we can only see half of their face, we can really tell what they are captivating with. The energy there was super cool. I love that with that circle. Boom. She's like, what's up, you know? And then having this energy right here at the front. Love that where she uses both arms. They use just their bodies. Helps frame well. Different. The lighting looks really cool here too. I will say my one note is some of our dancers, it feels like they didn't fully extend on the timing of that transition. The lighting helped cover that a little bit, but I'm going to go back to verify that. So it wasn't that she wasn't doing the timing, it was her range was a little bit off. So whenever you do this type of movement, some of them really move the knees to the inside to outside. Here, it's more of, it was more subtle, but also you had to think about where she was transitioning to. It's tricky when you do a groove like that. That does require a swing of the upper body to get your lower half to be on the same page while traveling you to a position that kind of works against you for the type of groove that you're doing. People have to do it all the time. We call it cheating. It's not like cheating on a test, but it's like sometimes whenever you have a group and they're doing unison, but some people, their unison will get them naturally to the next spot. Other people, they have to cheat either their foot, meaning that they have to modify the choreography, but of course that's discussed with the choreographer and the dancers, of course. Like, it's not just, you don't just do the call by yourself a lot of times. Sometimes you just do, depending on the circumstances, but whenever somebody cheats a position, it helps modify it where it doesn't take away the overall blueprint of the move, but it gets you where you need to go in the time that you're being requested. Because you're not just doing content, you have to make sure you're in the right place at the right time, because your formation and where you are in the stability side, like how you're holding that transition, is also part of your cleanliness, not just your content. So I'm very much a fan of that. We're only seeing very minor cases of those types of range problems, but they're like very normal things that happen. So I like that when we have our two having a moment in the back and everybody else having their moment that where their arms are slightly higher. Then she had a moment like a it was really fun. I don't know if it was quite a whack. She had more tutting, like more tutting on wrist roll switches. So I saw that more with like a spell. I call it like the Spella style of tutting, where she has a mix of whacking with a mix of wrist rolls to get where you want to go with your tuts. So I think it's super fun seeing that here. Right there, Notice, however, she didn't, if she was supposed to go into an overhead and drop it back down, she didn't complete her overhead. So that would be my overall note. Aesthetically, it looks cool, but technically, I don't think that was technically correct what she was doing. But does it take away from the overall essence of what type of concept this is? No, it doesn't. It looks great. It looks super cool. But that's just my one note if we're actually looking at this from a, did they do the techniques correctly? I don't think if they were trying to do a whacking variation, that was not a correct whacking variation in the overhead part specifically. Her having her moment even there too. Notice she stopped about near the top end versus having it down. She stopped it about right here. She didn't complete her overheads. And it's really tricky to do that. And it goes back to my point. They're not using their back. That's why. Because there's no way to really do this well without using your back to provide that space for your arm to go. So that's honestly, that just shows me that they're not using their back as much as they could here. But remember, they're a newer group. And also, I have seen a really great choreography from them anyway, so this is still great. It's just a very minor technical reminder of, or it just validates what I was saying in the very, very beginning of your back matters a lot more than you think it does, especially when you do styles like whacking. You cannot get away with it, especially the more difficult your variations become. If you don't use your back, you're a goner. You know, she still held it down and the timing was really great and the musicality was cool. Her range was not quite where it needed to be for that to be a justifiable whacking variation when you isolate it by itself. I love that here. I love that boom, doo doo doo. Just the energy. They pop up. They have a more, like, it really carries, and everything is tailored and complementary to what they're doing to the track in the ambiance that they've set it up. It's honestly really great. It's very cohesive, very enjoyable to watch. I love the moment where you had your feature in the back and then you still have everybody do the same thing, but you still have a two-part feature where one of them's kind of tailoring towards the choreo that everybody else is doing, and one is tailoring towards more framing upward to still be featured, but showcase a different level represented. So I'm very much a fan of that boom. You notice her hair got caught a little bit. That does obviously take away slightly from the energy, but it was really nice to see that music shift, that that kind of drop out of where they kind of remove some of that. Instead of just the it's a so they kind of took sound bits out in between that sound to really give it that choppy effect. And I really like that because it's different than what we normally hear from a track like this. And having her have that little crown energy was super cool. that boom, da-da-da-da-da, that drop down. I mean, my one note too is that part of me wishes I got to see a full shot the whole time, but it's a performance clip. It's not a full cam dance practice. So I'll have plenty of time to glean when I see a full dance practice for sure. But I'm very much a fan of this. Look at the spacing. Spacing looks great. I like the fact some of them have their hair down, some of them have it in a ponytail. And I think my question is, who's in the front? Okay, so she's in my front. She drops down. Part of me thinks it would have been really cool if it was down and it was a different person that was up. That would have been really cool, but also I understand why she featured up. Look at the color grading for a second. Do you see? It kind of looks like little angel wings right here. That lighting's freaking sick. Kudos to the camera guy and to whoever did the color grading for this, because of course there's like a whole team that works on this. And a lot of people have been saying that they really appreciate the full team of XG, not just XG, but like who helps behind the scenes. And I'm always a fan whenever I get to hear not just the group is good, but they're taken care of well. And those who are a part of XG, whether it's the camera op or it's the choreographers or it's those that make sure they're fed, I tend to want to support that more than ones who are like, they're mistreated, you know, because honestly, we know Jintu got in some lawsuits with a capital L for some of that mess. And so I'm always more, it's hard for me to, it's just harder whenever the group's not taken care of because they are trying really hard, but under difficult circumstances. But it's really nice to know that I think they have a healthier setup for their group in particular. But I'm very excited. If this was my very first taste if this was the very first taste I was getting of a girl group, I'd be freaking pumped. Because I also know too, with a lot of girl groups, they don't take a crew choreo perspective. I also know that a lot of you guys had said that Sienna, they went to LA and did some training, and there's like a whole vlog about that. Possibly, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I know Sienna was one of the people that helped train them in pre-debut. So I personally know Sienna, and we've just, our circles have overlapped, and we've become acquaintances over the years from HHI. So it's really nice to see her. I've seen her work with K-pop, seen it with BTS and everything, but I've also now seeing it here. It is really nice to see her perspective in multiple facets. And here it is different. It does take that more because she's done a lot of work with Paris from Royal. It is nice to see because she was a part of Rihanna's Super Bowl. You know, Sienna is one of the skeleton crew go-to members for Paris when Paris has a project. So it's nice to see Sienna have those fingerprints from her work that she does with Paris or with Savage Fenty, or, you know, with a lot of things in that regard, but also with her stuff with Lab and her training there, and seeing the overlap of both get to be utilized whenever we see, you know, like a BTS choreo to On, or we get to see an XG choreo with symptoms of that there. And then also too, I know with Keel did Puppet Show, and Keel was on Royal as well. So I'd say XG is definitely, it makes sense where their power is, it makes sense where their performance and stage presence is, because the fingerprints of who their choreographers are also have those things in common, where they have really, really strong stage presence and performance. And Sienna had that even before starting to work with Paris. So it's definitely really exciting to see that here. And I'm excited too to see XG have their own identity or perspective outside of the royal family trend-setting performance and projection. And that's something that I'm definitely, it makes me very appreciative of the fact that I'm able to connect these dots so early, because you guys have been such a big help already in that regard, to where I can appreciate and really hone in on, okay, and tailor my feedback accordingly to where I can be honest and say this really reads more royal and they're projecting it onto them, versus this feels like XG with the fingerprints of their choreographers. That's kind of the goal you want, is you want to see fingerprints of the things that makes a group what they are, but you don't want that to be their sole identity. And that's something that I was honest about with ATEEZ, that because in their pre-debuts, it really feels like they're just doing choreography, and I don't quite know what their identity is. Like, there's nothing quite within the song choice or the movement that was, or even their fashion that was giving to me, I'm looking at ATEEZ right now. It just looked like a cover group. And that's not a diss, and that's not a discredit for their hard work. It's in the K-pop realm or in the music group realm, you want to have your own identity as a group, because that's what's going to make you last, and that's what makes people want to get to know you more, because there's something captivating about your character or your movement. Because remember, I don't know these people, but if you want your choreography or how you present yourself in your music to make people intrigued to want to learn more is your goal. And so that's what something I know I'm going to be seeing from ATEEZ. I know that, and I'm excited about that, but I'm curious at when that's going to start happening. You know, is it going to be when their debuted, or this, that, or the other? But anyway, I know this is an XG video and I was talking about ATEEZ, so my apologies, but it is relevant because I'm reacting to both of these at the same time, and they're kind of helping validate each other in the sense of fashion, or in the sense of identity, or in the sense of their polyrhythmic intention, their formations, their groups, this, that, or the other. So I'm very excited to continue on this journey. This is really fun. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope I was helpful in some way. If you want to see any XG, any ATEEZ, 17, K-pop, the whole slew of all that, I have that all over Patreon, but I do have some of it on YouTube. Don't let my YouTube fool you. It is deceiving, especially when this video comes out. It looks like I haven't reacted to a lot of K-pop, but I have seen a lot at this point. And I'm very excited about that, of course. And I cannot wait to keep going, because I feel like I get to learn not only about the groups, and their growth as dancers, I get to know the people who support these groups as well, like you guys. And so I'm very excited for the discussions on this. Please let me know if you have any extra thoughts to add into this. If you watched this when it came out originally, I want to know what your thoughts were, because remember, for me, I'm coming at it from a 2023 lens at the time of recording this in comparison to when this came out, you know, so it's a little different. And so I'm definitely looking forward to the discussions, like I've said, just whether it's on Patreon or YouTube, it's going to be great. I'm Jess, and I will catch you on the flip side. Bye.